Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel here. So today I've got quite an interesting one for you. This is a gaming PC, obviously, and I think that this might be the best value for money PC that I've ever built. This PC comes from second-hand parts which I've gotten at a shop called Cash Converters, which is a local shop to South Africa. I've spoken about it once or twice. And the other parts come from Carbonite, which is a forum-based trading platform, which has a little bit of credibility because of the iTrader system that it utilizes. So I'm not going to get into that too much. We'll probably make a video on that in the future. But just wanting to speak about the PC itself. I got the graphics card in here, which is a 1070 8 gig. I got that from Carbonite for 2,000 Rand, which is about $120, I think, more or less, maybe 130. And I think that's a pretty good price, a little bit cheaper than what they usually go for. And then in terms of the PC, this case came from a build that I bought from Cash Converters, but the case itself is not the part that the motherboard came with. So the case is unique in that way, and then the hard drive and the SSD are unique. The SSD is brand new. Got that for 300 Rand, which is about $15, no, $20. Case extrapolated from another build, so the case's value from that build is about 800 Rand, which is about $50. So we are at about $200 so far, more or less. And then the motherboard, RAM, CPU, and power supply came from a different system, which I got for 2,700 Rand. But the graphics card that was in that system, as well as the case that was used for that system, were sold elsewhere. So I subtracted the price of that from this, and this is basically then about $150 that I paid for it. So in total, this build cost me around $350 to $400, which I think is a good value for something that has a 1070 8 gig, i5-8400 6-core CPU, 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM. It actually came with 24 gigs, but I took out 8 gigs and then just put in dual channel 16 gig, and 2 terabyte hard drive and a 128 gig SSD, and of course this beautiful case, custom cables for the power delivery, as well as a RGB strip that works with a remote. So yeah, I think this is a fantastic build for gaming, and if I were someone that just plays games, I would probably get something like this if I didn't have to do production work. So with that said, I think it's a fantastic value. I really like how it looks. Let me give you some angles here. That's it from the side, and that's it from the front. You have a little LED button here. You can change the colors, and then I have a fan. A RGB hub where I can change the color of the RGB for the RGB light as well for the string. What do you call those? I guess light strip. I don't know. So yeah, it's hot in South Africa right now. So yeah, I think it's a fantastic looking PC. I really like it, and I think it's going to do pretty well in the tests. This is going to be tested at mostly ultra graphics at HD, because I believe that's what it should be achieving. So with that said, let's get into the benchmarking and let's see how this little guy does. Let's do it.
Alright, getting into the first benchmark here, and this is of course Doom Eternal, and this is a game that I've played many times before on this channel as a benchmark, and it's such an easy game to do because it's it's a fun game. It loads quickly. Most PCs can handle it, so I enjoy doing it, and so far this PC is doing extremely well. If you look at the metrics there, you'll see that we are at 75 degrees on the GPU. The GPU is of course a GTX 1070, and the GPU is working hard, maxed out in terms of usage, and it is pulling around 150 watts. In this system we have a 700 watt power supply, and I think the system looks fantastic. I think it's doing well, and it looks really good. So the CPU is also in the 70s at 71 degrees, a little bit lower now. CPU isn't working that hard. This is a 6-core CPU, and the CPU isn't pulling a lot of power either. So this is a very efficient CPU. This is the Core i5 8400, I believe. So in terms of frame rate, we are doing quite well, at around 100 FPS for the most part, sometimes getting a little bit more, and yeah, I think it's a good result so far. This is obviously more than playable. You can even call this almost high refresh rate, so definitely a lot of fun. Computer is blocking my hand. And yeah, if you look at the frame timing, pretty good at around 8 milliseconds, and the frame rate is at around 120 still. We are using around 6 gigs of RAM, and we have 16. So that's, you know, that's more than enough for a game like this. For a game like this, you could probably get away with 8 gigs of RAM, but I'd always prefer to use 16 gigs. It's just it leaves you that little bit of headroom if you do end up needing it. So that's always something that I prefer, and something that I go for when choosing RAM. This guy's always a little bit difficult to kill. Got him. Man, this game's animations are still so good. Such a fun game still. Just shooting and destroying enemies will never get old. I'm just sitting at a really weird angle here. So yeah, the game is doing really well. We are still around the 120 FPS mark. This is running on maximum settings at Ultra Nightmare. So yeah, I think it's an excellent result. I'm not going to play for too long, obviously. I think the game is running extremely well, and we are still in the 70s for temperatures, and this is just a stock cooler. But that's the thing about these older i5s, you know, this is an 8th gen i5, is they don't need extreme cooling. You can see the cooler there, it's just a stock Intel cooler, so you know, that's really all you need. So I would call this definitely a console equivalent experience, and definitely an excellent experience. It's very smooth, very fun, and definitely very playable. So with that said, let's move on to the next one. Let's do it. Alright, getting into the Hitman benchmark here. Although this isn't the benchmark that I usually do, I actually thought for once I would actually play the game, because I've gotten a little bit tired of just doing that benchmark over and over, and you know, playing the game is a more real world sort of situation, to see what it would be like, you know, when you're testing these PCs. Because the benchmark obviously is fine, but it does get boring to do the same thing over and over. So with that said, I am actually playing the game. I haven't played this in a long time, so I don't actually remember how it works. But yeah, I think this is running well. This is running at ultra graphics, and this is a big crowd as well, so it's a good testing situation for the game, because obviously when I look towards this church, for instance, the frame rate is going to be high. When I look towards the mountains, it'll be decent. But when you look towards big crowds of people, the CPU is going to work harder, the graphics card is going to work harder to render everything. There's going to be more draw calls on screen, so everything will work harder. But that's how you get a good, you know, average frame rate for anything. So So yeah, so this is running quite well. This is going from basically 70 FPS to about 150. And this is running on maximum graphics. We are getting still 70, basically 70 degrees on the CPU and the GPU. The bottleneck is minimized in this test, in this game. So usually there's about a 10% bottleneck between a 1070 and a 8400 i5. So right now these are sort of working as hard as one another. So there isn't much of a bottleneck, so that's always good. And in terms of wattage, we are pulling around 150 watt for the most part. And yeah, I think the PC is handling this really well. We are using 6.5 gigs of RAM, and we do have 16 gigs. And the frame time is very smooth too. And I mean, this feels amazing. You could play this with a high refresh rate screen, and for the most part, you'll achieve that 144 FPS mark. If you want to consistently achieve it, you can turn down the graphics to medium or such, and you know, always be hitting that mark. But the point is that this is running really well, and I'm extremely happy with how it's running. Looking towards the busier areas, like I said, you're going to drop down in frame rate, but if you are in more quieter areas like this one, it will be a lot better, so to say. How do you pull a gun? I don't remember. Oh. Gramps is just gonna... Oh. Cool. Anyway, so yeah, that's a pretty good result. I'm quite happy with it. Probably say we averaged around 80 FPS. So excellent result, and definitely play this game really easily on a PC like this. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Alright, getting into the Shadow of the Tomb Raider benchmark here, and this is one that I always love to do. This is running on 1080p at high settings, I think highest settings, and starting off really well at around 80 frames, which is pretty good. And in this one, there's a little bit of a bottleneck with the GPU. The CPU isn't doing that much, but this game isn't as CPU intensive as some of the other ones that I test. So there's a little bit of a bottleneck there, but for the most part the 1070 will bottleneck the CPU, not the other way around as it is in this test. Again, we are still using under 8 gigs of RAM at around 7 gigs now, and the CPU and the GPU have sort of found their temperature with that 70 degree mark. And in terms of usage, the CPU isn't doing too much in these tests. This is a more GPU heavy game. Pulling around almost 200 watts now of power, which is a lot more than we did, but that's because the GPU is working as hard as it is. But I mean, it's an excellent result in terms of frame rate, and the frame time is pretty smooth as well. You'll see the frame time there is at around 11 milliseconds for the most part. And we've upped the RAM usage a little bit, not too much, but I think that this is a very good result. As I said, I believe this is at maximum graphics. It might be high, but I think it's highest. Either way, it's a fantastic result, and I feel like it runs really well. We are now getting into the scene with a lot of LODs. This scene is a little bit easier to run until you get to the end where there's a lot of people, and we are getting around 130 FPS right now, but it'll probably drop into the 70s or so. But you know, overall I think that this has been a very good result, and that I think a PC like this will, you know, when it comes to gaming, this is really all you need. This is perfect for someone that just wants to game, nothing else. I mean, obviously you can do production work on this. I just mean that if I was just a gamer, this is probably the sort of system I would go for, to be able to max out most games on HD and have a respectable frame rate while doing so. So this has dropped to the 80s, which is not bad at all. And I think that this has been an excellent benchmark for this PC. I think it's done really well, and I'm pretty impressed by it, to be honest. I think it's very much holding its own in these HD benchmarks. Now when you get to 4K and 2K, I don't think it'll do quite as well, but for this, it's doing pretty well. Let's move on to the last one. Let's do it. Okay, getting into the test for Far Cry New Dawn, And as I said previously, this test is sort of just a updated Far Cry 5 test because it is the same engine. It's just a little bit different props and stuff, but the engine is very much the same. This is running on Ultra on HD, and so far we are averaging 93 FPS, and we are doing quite well. The CPU is working a lot harder in this one, which is interesting to see, and the GPU is also almost working to its capacity, so this is a good benchmark to max out your performance. The RAM, again, is only at about 6 gigs, and this PC does have 16. So, yeah, in terms of gaming performance, I think this is quite good. We are averaging 98, 97, and everything is running extremely well. I think this has been an excellent test so far, and I think it's going to finish off strong as well. I think we'll get to that 100 average mark, maybe just miss it, but regardless, excellent high refresh rate gaming. Definitely recommend it. Okay, testing done. Not bad at all. I think this PC performed quite admirably, and I for one am pretty happy with the performance. For a price point of under $400, I believe around $350, this has done extremely well. It might be between $350 and $400. I never know exactly what the prices were until I actually make the titles and thumbnails for the videos, but I think this one's around $350 to $400, and at that price point this does extremely well. Now this is going to come close to the performance of a modern mid-spec system, so that means something like a RTX, maybe a RTX like a 2060 or even a 3060, not quite but almost, and then also maybe something like a Ryzen 5th gen 5500, something like that. This is going to come close to that, but this is going to be a fraction of the price, to be honest, because a system like that could run you up to $800, probably even a bit more depending on where you purchase it, and this one only costs at the most $400. Now, of course, this is used, but I am talking about used. A new RTX 3060 with a computer equivalent to this is going to be more than $1,000 easily. So I think this is a fantastic result for the money paid. I also think aesthetically the system looks fantastic. It's got really good RGB, you can set the colors to anything you want, and I just think it performed really well. Now of course some of my tests are a little bit outdated at this point, I think. I probably need to get some new tests going at some point here. But regardless, those are probably the kind of games that you're going to play with a system like this. So yeah, not too much to say. I think it did well. What I would say is if I were someone that wanted to just play games, didn't worry about production or 3D work at all, I would probably just get something like this. Maybe a 1080 or a 2070, but that depends on the budget, of course. If my budget were $350 to $400 and someone offered this to me, I would definitely go for it. So I think with that in mind, the system did really well, price to performance. And it's going to be difficult to get this sort of performance from a console at similar price points and from other PCs at similar price points. So I think the system did well. I think it looks really cool. Of course, that's dependent on the person that that purchases it. But it always helps when you can set the colors to whatever you want them to be for both the LED and the front fans here. One thing that I would probably add to this, if this were my PC, is just that stock fan looks a little bit out of place. I think maybe getting like a nice deep cool fan or something like that would probably look quite nice. Even just like a sci fan, like one of those just black fans would look, those blocky tower coolers would look really cool. And an AIO could look nice as well because you have the fan space at the top as well. So with that in mind, I think the PC did well. I don't know why I'm not focused anymore. I think that helped. I think the PC did well. I think that if your budget is something similar to this, I mean, there are other options, and there are probably better value prospects, but I don't think this is a bad one. So with that said, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the content. I hope that you keep watching. I hope that you find some enjoyment and hopefully even a little bit of value in these videos. You know, I'm not exactly a pro at this, but I enjoy doing it, and I really enjoy building PCs. So yeah, I'm always happy when people follow along and watch the videos. I am just doing it as a hobby and I enjoy doing it. So thank you for watching if you got to this point, and I do hope to see you in the next one. Cheers.